Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. It transitioned over. There we go. All right. I just upgraded everything. You guys were just watching me do that, so everything is now upgraded. Let's see what I broke. Um, Hopefully nothing, but you never know, right? Um, so npx nx serve. I have two questions for you today. Hopefully, you do not scream at me like the other time. Okay. I screamed at you. Morning, Ole. Welcome on this Sunday. It is nasty outside. Ah, directly as a post CSS, the post CSS plugin is moved to a separate package. So to continue using it, you'll need to install Tailwind post CSS and update your post CSS configuration. Oh no, that's on me. Evening in the Ukraine. It is. Yeah. I was so angry I was about to lose my hair. Brother. Sounds like I was pretty angry. Tailwind CSS directly as a post CSS plugin. Um it looks like I'm gonna have to downgrade Tailwind. Um so that upgrade of Tailwind didn't go so well. Let's see what we changed here. Tailwind. 4.06 down to 3.02. It's like everything else is fine. So um, npx nx migrate. Um, Actually, I don't even need to migrate. I can do just do an npm remove tailwind css. Oleg, yeah, Oleg. We connected on LinkedIn too. I was happy when it happened. Um, so yeah, that was. I feel comfortable enough with Vue to do some kind of project, nothing too crazy, just something to practice a bit and say that I know Vue. Any suggestions? How did I get mad over that question? Um, all Tailwind CSS at, and before we were greater than 3.0.2. Um, some projects to start with. Um, so typically in the past, I would have suggested um, like a to-do list or something like that, but everybody does it. It's so played out that it's hard to know what was actually yours and what wasn't. So my suggestion would be um, maybe what would be a good suggestion? Like um, maybe something simple like like a tic-tac-toe game, right? Or knots and crosses or whatever you call it. Might be good. Um, or even like a package of games where maybe you have something simple like tic-tac-toe and rock, paper, scissors and stuff like that, that would allow you to switch between different games and play different games. That might be a good way to go. Another simple one is potentially generating calendars, but that one might be a little bit played out. Um, Trying to think of things that aren't too difficult, but would show like understanding of the frameworks. Um, Something with like the Rick and Morty or Star Wars API or any of the free APIs out there, um, would show, your understanding of APIs and things like that. Um, yeah. Okay. Now I know you're trolling me, man. It was a good troll. Well done. Snake or Tetris. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The JSON placeholder API. Yeah, stuff like that, right? Stuff that just shows simple understanding. Um, let's see, npm nx serve. Let's see if it works this time. It's looking better. Okay. So I can't update to Tailwind 4 because I don't want to go in, like, I don't want this to be a problem solving stream. Um, I just opened that on the wrong browser, as always. I'm looking for, where's my 4200? Um, let's see. That's Excalibur. That's the NX docs. This is something I really want to get into. Um, did I put the? We got so many open tabs over here that. Um, well, let's get a new one. Local host 4200. Okay, so things are working. It's really kind of lame, but let's start getting some stuff in place, right? So this is all good. WebStorm. Let's fire up WebStorm. Um, yeah, Michael. For those of you guys, I made a post and I don't like to call people out, but Michael shares so much information. Um, just been hugely helpful behind the scenes with the information that he shares. Um, and um, yeah, I really appreciate just the messaging and stuff that Michael does, and he's really very helpful in the community. Um, what is going here? Okay. We recommend that you install our update. So, um, why are you showing me direct ads? What are you trying to? I'm trying to. We'll just leave it. Uh, um, That's hilarious, dude. Um, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying anything. Um, I'm just saying be careful. That's all I'm saying. Are you guys getting crappy ads? Like I've turned my ads way down. So I'm trying to do as little as possible. Um, it's cracking me up if you guys are getting ads like that. I will admit. Um, I want to know what kind of ads, but I kind of don't want to ask because always dangerous, right? Um, like I try to run. I've got my ads turned down as low as Twitch will let me turn them down. Um, and like I get that Twitch needs to, pay for their stuff. And so I recognize that and I'm good with that. But I think the ads are region based. That's probably true. Um, makes a lot of sense. Anyway, here's our application. Let's dive into resource, right? Um, and to do that, um, trying to decide how I want to do this. If I want to create a new library, let's keep it simple. I don't want, so during the workshop, I don't want people to have to get too bogged down into NX and stuff like that. Let's keep it simple. So we've got an app library, but let's go ahead and add. Well, wait. So this is my app. We'll just add a new folder here. A new directory. We'll call this directory services. And inside of our services directory, we're going to create a new we want a new service. Um, and this service is going to be the service that we're going to use to communicate with the Star Wars API. So we'll just call this our Swappy service, right? And flat, that's fine. Not going to skip tests. So we can see that it's going to create our services, Swappy service. Great, perfect. So now we've got our Star Wars API service. This is where we're going to start using the resource. Rounded streamers and have to sit through a minute per person. That's rough. Like the pre-roll stuff, uh, Swappy champions. Probably. I love Star Wars and you know, I I could talk your ear off about Star Wars. I'm actually um I need to go watch the latest season of The Bad Batch is what I'm hearing. Hey Marcus, welcome. But yeah, I'm huge into Star Wars. Um, so yeah, if you really want to snipe me, start a Star Wars conversation and we'll go off the rails. Um, so here's our Star Wars service. Why you gave me a constructor, I don't know. Provided in root is probably fine. Um, so we're going to want this service to make some requests, right? Um, and this is where the resource comes into place. I'm curious if I can do, well, first let's go take a look at our Angular stuff. So here's the swappy.dev documentation that we'll be using quite heavily today. Oh, hey, look. That was what I was looking for before, but whatever. We've got it there now. Um, I just distracted myself. So this is the current version. This is for next. So inside of this version, let's look for HTTP resource. Um, I don't see it. Let's start with resource, right? So resource takes some options. Um, and this is where I need to do some learning, right? So maybe the best place to go look is we'll go look for the unit tests here, right? Um, so let's search for resource. The resources in Angular core, we can probably help things along by going into core. Let's go into testing. Let's see what tests we have in here. Styling, testing internals. So here is our testing of resource. So got a fetch and abort and a resource. So resource, our request is here, our loader is here, our injector, we just get an injector. But that's only needed for the unit tests. So really with resource, we just need the request and loader. Um, so there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do here. It should cancel pending quests, requests before starting new ones, uh, destroyed via the injector, when the request is manually destroyed, state changes in a loader. So if a loader makes changes Interesting. Not, it should allow setting local state. There's a lot going on here. One thing that I'm curious about, and let's go back. Um, is the HTTP resource in place? Oh, look at that. Look at that. So in the HTTP test, we do have an HTTP resource. Awesome. Yeah, yeah. Um, Unit tests are where I go to learn if something is there. And I also go to learn how to use it. So I can see right here that we can use the HTTP resource from Angular Common HTTP. And HTTP resource is built on top of the HTTP client. Um, so I'm going to have to provide my HTTP client in my stuff. But this is good news. This means that we can, well, first thing we can do is in our app config, we just need to provide our HTTP client, provide HTTP client. There we go. And we may add some new abilities to that in the future, but for right now, we're going to leave it as is. But this gives us some abilities, and let's start with so I'm trying to think about how I would want to do this, and I don't know that I want resources in this service. I think this service should provide me the ability to create resources. Um, so or maybe I'm going about this wrong. Maybe instead of doing an actual entire service, maybe what I want is like a character service and a place service and things like that. Um, I spoke around and I feel like people recommend me try to make a in the European market. I remember you saying you spoke with some European freelancers asking them some information. What happened there? Um, it's been a long time since I spoke with people in European markets. I I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I remember the outcome. Um, I do know that like I'm very Angular focused, right? And so I do know that like France and the Ukraine are where Angular is doing the best. If I remember well from way back when. Um, in fact, in France, Angular is actually bigger than React or Vue. Um, um, so yeah, to break into the European market, I'm a bad resource there, and in fact, I'll tell you right now, just the job market in general is difficult. I just spoke to a couple of consulting, like people who run consulting firms last week. Um, and they're telling me that just consulting across the board is in a rough place right now. Um, Belgium, yeah, Belgium and Switzerland also, yes, and Italy. Really? I didn't know Angular was big in Italy. That's really cool. Um, but yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how I want to solve this problem. I think this what would probably wind up happening is we would get like a character. Um, why can't I type today? Character resource, right? Um, and here, what we would want to do is something very similar to what we're seeing here, um, where we would return the HTTP resource. We probably want this, and there's a reason we probably want this. Just thinking about it now, if we go look at we need a base URL, and so that's what we'll provide on this service. So this service can provide a base URL. Um, we'll make it read only base URL. Well, sometimes it's a little bit too smart. Um, so now for our resource, um, I need to figure out how to use that base URL. Provide HTTP client. Because the resource is going off of slash data. And maybe I just go with a full URL here. The URL, you can do a post. Um, so let's try and see if we can get characters. Oh, hey, I just joined. When you say consulting is rough, is that only Angular or web development as a whole? Um, web like any technical consulting right now is really tough. And this is me speaking with people who own consulting companies. It's just really rough. Um, yeah, web dev as a whole is in a tough spot. Um, um, yeah, Johanderson, Johanderson. Thank you for making it. Um, I really appreciate you being here. I'm not. Maybe I know who you are, but yeah. For resource, you need to pass an object with at least the loader function. And we're going to use HTTP resource, which is slightly different. Um, and uh, no, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's keep this to resource because I did say resource. We'll do HTTP resource as kind of like a bonus for the end, right? Um, so let's start with resource, right? So we're going to want to return, um, and we're going to want to return a resource. right? Um, and our resource, like you said, needs a couple of things, right? We need at least the loader. Um, and so with our resource, let's go back here to core. Um, and source, and then resource. Um, actually, let's go into testing or test, and then resource, right? Um, so, and thank you, Wiseman Z, for the help. Um, I do want to recognize that. So, our resource, we need a request, right, to tell it what to request, and then we need a loader. Um, and then we can feed stuff into our request. Um, and this will give us a resource that we can use. So it's going to be basically a factory function. So here we can request, um, and if we take a look at our request here, we build up the object, right? Um, so we'll want to pass in the ID here. So we'll take in an ID. This ID will be, we'll call it a signal. And I think it has to be a capital S here. Signal. Um, and our signal can be a string. Uh, right? And then we're going to return our object that just has um, our ID is ID, right? So that's our request object. Um, and I probably named that wrong. It should be, no, it should be request. Then we need our loader, which takes in the params. So then we have our loader. And from here, yeah, we can destructure ID out of it, right? Um, and at this point, we're to, right? Our loader function is now ready to do something. Um, and yeah, we can just say this dot get um, character ID, right? And doesn't like that. Oh, you know what? The function is what's messing things up here. Character resource. Um, and actually, ID comes in here. Um, telling us base URL is never used. That's fine. Really, property ID does not exist on type resource loader params ID string. Well, if we go params here, right, then we can do this dot get character, and then we can grab params dot ID. Um, and so now we need, we can make this one private also. so that we encapsulate our loaders, right? So here we can just say, hey, get character, and it will take an ID that's a string. Um, and at this point, we need to return something. So our base URL. So with resource, we now have um, we now have a way to create a character resource. One other thing I want to do is we've got our base URL. And let's make this a const, right? And then if we look at the characters, or maybe it's people, it is people. We can get all the people, we can get just a specific person or things like that. So here we'll call this our people resource instead. And here we won't. Well, we can pass in a string, right? And here we can say, hey, we want read-only people URL is that. It's saying, hey, you're not using it. That's fine. Here we can just return. Oh, we need an HTTP client here, so we're going to inject that. So read only HTTP client equals inject HTTP client. And so now we can return this dot HTTP client dot get that, right? And it doesn't like my inject because I didn't bring it in. Doesn't like my HTTP client because I also didn't bring that in. There we go. So and we'll rename this to be get person. And here, this can be get person. And now it doesn't like my loader because I'm returning an observable and it wants a promise type in my resource. Interesting. Um, Request callback can't have signature from the loader must return a promise not observable. Yeah, is WebStorm playing nice with V19 already? I had to stop using it because their language service was not updated. I don't know. I'm just using it. RX resource. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you for that, um, everybody. RX resource is the one we want. Um, you guys are right. Um, let's let's pipe this to pipe, and here we'll just grab first value from, right? Um, value from, boom. Doesn't like this. Oh, duh. First value from just wraps the, so here we can just do first value from, boom. There we go. So now we've got our promise that returns an object. Here, well, for now, we'll just test it as is, right? Params.id, I don't know why. It is picking up that ID as a string on the request. Um, but I'm not sure. Is it building? Maybe it's building. It is building. So um, let's try using it, right? So let's go to our app component really quick. Um, and here we'll just add a simple input. Um, well, that's really interesting. Um, yeah, input. Um, and what we can do is we can bind this input to a signal. So ng model. Um, and the signal we'll bind it to is the person ID for now. Um, come on. What's going on here? Right. And so now we need our person ID to exist down here. We're just going to protected person ID equals signal. And we'll start off with I don't know. Yeah, we can start off with person one. It doesn't matter, right? And to use ng model, we just have to bring in the forms module. So there we go. So now we've got our person ID. And here, let's just add a div. This div will have a pre in it. And we'll need to put something in here, but for right now, we'll just go person ID, and we'll put in person ID, right, to just make sure that everything is good. And because it's a signal, we need to read it. And so now if we go check out our application, here's our person ID. We set this to 2. We set it to 56. Great. So now we need to get um, a resource to be able to test this, right? So we'll just protected person resource equals, and here we need to inject our resource. We using title anywhere? I don't think we are. I take this out. Actually, I know we are. It's being used. We're going to call this Star Wars. It didn't like that. Star Wars, we'll call it Star Wars Merc Finder, right? Um, and the other thing we need is we need a read-only private person resource. Or no, we don't. We need the swappy service, right? So we inject the swappy service here. So we'll grab our eject, right? We'll inject the swappy service, and um, then here we can now say this dot swappy service dot people resource this dot person ID, right? And so now we've got our resource that we can use. And let's go ahead and give ourselves, yeah, I like that. Um, it's trying to, there we go. Um, we'll indent that. No. Ah, fighting with this is a lot of fun. And person resource is not a signal. Let's also bring in the JSON pipe because we're going to be using it. But person resource dot value, right? Well, the first thing we could do is bring in is loading, right? Um, there we go. So we can see if it's loading, and then the next thing we can do is person resource. And our person resource is not this. We're going to use the resource, but we're going to grab we'll grab the value. I mean, the reason this is a writable signal is because it's a linked signal. And then the last thing we want to do, well, we could add the status here too, right? Why? Status. That. Um, so there we go. This should. So it is telling us that it can't read that ID. Which is a bit annoying. So let's see. Yeah. So it doesn't know what ID is. So here's my resource. Here's my request. We've got my ID here. And this is a params. What is on params? Like, shouldn't that work? Dot. Oh, that's why. It's absolutely right. It's not params. We can destructure request out of this. And now we can do request.id. There we go. So now this should reload. So we got the loading resource right away that it was true. It responded with status 4. Person 1 is Luke Skywalker because why wouldn't person 1 be Luke Skywalker, right? But say we change this to be O. So with nothing, it's going to grab the whole page. So we may want to fix that. But let's say that we do person, I don't know, 500. It's not loading. That person doesn't exist. So person 50 does, right? And like, I don't know, person, let's do, I don't know, person 300. Person 300 exists? No. What about person 200? No. Person 199. 199. No. Person 150. Really? How many people are in here? 99? Doesn't exist. 85? Doesn't exist. Try 75. So 75 exists. It's an R4 unit. 80? 80 exists. Tarful. Really? Tarful's in here. I love Tarful. Tarful's the clan leader of Chewbacca's Wookiee clan. That's awesome. So 84. No, 83. So there are 83 people in this database. That's good to know. And the last one is Tyon Meta, and I don't know who that is. I guess I'm not nerdy enough. So there we go. With resource, we've got pretty cool abilities here, right? Like we can see that the loading status is turning on and off, and we can also get the status of what's happening. So we can handle errors and things like that. And it's already handling, like, when I put in 100, right? It's already telling me, hey, there was an error. But my application's not broken. I didn't have to do anything special. So, person 33, boom. Newt Gunray, really. Another fun little, I think, isn't Newt Gunray one of the Genosians? For my for my Star Wars fans out there, I think Newt Gunray is one of the Geonosians. Aligned with the Trade Guild, I think. I believe so. I'm curious, like, where Ahsoka and like Ventress fit in here and things like that. So like 45, I don't know. Bib Fortuna, interesting. but our resource is working. So a couple of things to be aware of. That as I'm slowly working through this, right? We've got a people resource here. And we can grab a specific person out of this resource. And the cool thing about this people resource is we can have multiple resources, right? So if we go back to our app, um, and let's just copy this again, right? We're going to clean this up, but this is going to be tied to person two and person ID two, right? Um, and we're going to call this person two resource. By building our by building this dot person ID two. We called it person two ID. Um, so oh, and I changed this. So this should be person two ID, and this should be person two ID. So there we go. So by building our service this way, where this people resource is more of a factory function, we can encapsulate things like our HTTP client can be encapsulated here. So if we need to do anything special with our HTTP client, we can do it here. Our base URL can be encapsulated in this service, right? And our people URL can be encapsulated. So, and even the request to get a person is encapsulated inside of our Star Wars service. Really all we need to do is expose the people resource, and then within this resource we just get a signal, to that we tie um, to the person we want to look up. And so when that signal changes, we can have two different people, right? So here we could have person, I don't know, we'll do 69, right? um, Django Fett. Nice. That's perfect. Um, so Jango Fett can be here, but we've still got Luke Skywalker here, right? And this is the important piece about why I chose to build our service this way instead of trying to instead of trying to encapsulate the resource within the service. Once I encapsulate that resource within the service, then I need to inject different services for different levels, right? Yeah, nice, exactly. Um, you know, the other person we could take a look at is for all the hitchhiker's guides, right? Person 42. I don't know who Quarsh Panaka is. Um, doesn't quite fit as well. Um, right? Everybody knows who Django is. Django's kind of a badass, right? Um, Django is Boba's father, um, and he rode around on Rancors, right? That was a little bit silly, but whatever. But I don't know who Quarsh Panaka is. Doesn't fit with the answer to life, and everything. But um, this is one thing that I really like about using Daisy UI is that I'm getting nice inputs, based on, nice inputs, nice, just a whole bunch of really good looking stuff. So we now have a resource that we can use to get different people. Why do we want to do that? Well, if we go take a look at our Excalidraw stuff here, um, right? So we're going to have our person to choose here, but we're also going to have multiple people here. Um, and, you know, if we change choice one for whatever reason, we want it to update. So, I don't know. Right, we're going to at least want two services here. So when, this person is chosen, um, they show up over here. The other thing I was thinking is, you know, one thing we could do is modify this to have, hey, who are you? So you type in your name, right? Maybe I'm Ventress Asajj, and who's your target? Maybe my target is, Count Dooku, right? Because I'm I'm ready to finally take him on, right? And then who do these are the people randomly chosen. These are the people who, are willing to go along with your stuff. And then these are the price that they want and things like that. Um, but we'll start here. Um, let's build out this person to choose list first. Um, and then we'll look at this second. So we've got our resource, and our resource does some really cool stuff, and it's really easy to use. Um, However, we could do some other cool stuff with it, right? Let's go take a look at the API. Um, and what I would like to know is like, can I get a count of like people? Um, if we look at the people here, we can get the schema. We can search on name. But like, what if I just want to get the count? Um, if I clear this, right? Oh, it does. We've got 82 people. So there we go. Um, so right away, and I may not want to query everybody back, right? Um, so Luke Skywalker has an ID of 1. C3PO is number 2. R2D2 is 3. Vader is 4. Leia is 5. Owen Lars, really? Owen Lars is number 6. Luke's adopted father, right? Beru, um, his adopted mom. R5, really? Weird. Biggs, Biggs. Oh, they don't even do Wedge next. It's Biggs and then Obi-Wan. Oh, poor Wedge. Um, anyway, we can get the count. I'm curious. Here I am nerding out, right, over Star Wars, and who's where. But let's look here. Um, and this is the cool thing about, like we could have used the JavaScript library, and maybe, um, look, there's even an Angular one in here, and an Angular 2. Um, I'm curious if I go take a look at this library. Um, what's in here? So get people, page number, get planets, get films. This is pretty simple. Get starships, get person, get planet, get film. Um, get person schema, get planet schema, get film schema. These are all the schemas: get, call, extract data, handle errors. Um, so they don't have the count stuff in here, and that's the stuff that I was curious about because what I would like to do is just get the count and not have to do like query for a page of data, right? Um, so that they send me back less data. So searching here, we'll take a look at searching. Advanced search terms, look here. So search equals that. So these are internal searches, ordering filter. We don't care about the order. Specify which fields may be ordered against. Generic filtering. I just want to count. There's only one. So I guess right off the bat, we're just going to have to do a query. You know what? I'm going to cheat. We're going to hard code 82. It's unlikely that this value will change. We're just going to hard code it. Um, so we want another service here. And this service will get us the information um, for a specific person. Well, what we want is we want to basically we want to randomize the numbers from 1 to 82. Because we want to be able to loop through the numbers, and this is where we're going to want hmm, we've got the swappy service. Let's create a new service. Um, and this new service, we're going to call it our mercenary service, right? Um, so this is our merc service. Um, there we go. Uh, that's fine. This is all fine. We're going to leave this all injected in root. I don't want to do anything crazy because I don't want to take the focus off of um, I don't want to take the focus off of the person itself or off of the resource itself. I want to keep the focus on the resource. But one thing we want to do um, is when this service is injected, um, we want the IDs, right? And so what we can do is we can do a private person order equals. And what we can do at this point is we can say array dot from, right? And what we want to do is here, we're just going to do const max people equals 82 because that's how many there are. And so we can say we want an array dot from length of max people. And then we're going to return the index of I plus 1, right? Um, so now what we can do is we can say, hey, oh, that's horrible. We're definitely not going to do it this way. But what we can do is we can just say, hey, get Merc. Um, and let's make this an iterator, right? So we can say, hey, get Mercs. Um, yeah. So this is a really cool thing, right? Is we've created this generator in our Merc service, and it's just going to loop over the get Mercs. And really, we just want to yield the ID. And so now with our Swappy service, um, with our app component, um, what we can do is we can actually change this stuff, right? So we can make this a read only. Um, and this is our person ID. And that's our person ID. But right after this, we can just add a button. And we're going to clean this up this week, right? And what we can do is we can click and we can say, hey, next Merc, right? And we want this to be a type equals button. And we can say next here, right? And for our class, we want button and we want button, we'll call it a primary button. There we go. So now we need our next Merc ability down here. We're going to take out all of this stuff here because we don't want it anymore. And down here, we can add a protected function. Protected next Merc, right? And we can say, you know, we need the iterator, so we need the Merc service. So we'll inject the Merc service, right? Read only Merc service. There we go. We'll inject that. There we are. And so we can say while this dot Merc service dot get Mercs next. Let's see. Get Mercs is going to return a generator, right? So actually, we can just say um, we don't want to read this over and over again. So the other thing we can do is we can say, hey, read only Merc order equals that. Boom. And so now we don't have to do get mercs every time. And here we can say while const this dot and here we want const next merc equals this dot merc order dot next. And it might need to be a let, right? Does that work? What's it saying? I don't need a. I can just use a for loop on my generator. Why am I doing this? Well, actually, we don't even need to do that. Const next equals that. And there we go. So now when we click next, it should set that should set the value. Oh my god, colon instead. No, it's just I was trying to do something silly with the while loop and I shouldn't have been doing it. So you should ignore that code that I was trying to write. But here we go. So now we can see that we're looping through each person. I've got my input set wrong. We can go ahead and fix that up too. Because I changed from binding this two-way binding, this needs to be just that. And now we can see, hey, we started with person 8, right? Here we are, we're on person 1. As I hit next, we're on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So we are getting everything here. The other thing we need to do is right now we're just hard coding person to the very first, like to number 1, right? What we want to do is just do this. Well, we can leave it as 1 for now, but so here we can do a constructor, right? And what we can say is I'm drawing a blank. Next, yeah. So here, can we do a before next render? So after next render, right? We just want to grab the next merc. So after next render is kind of like the on init. So why does this matter, right? Well, we're gonna go do something here in our Merc service. Um, and what we want to do is we want to sort this. Um, yeah, that'll give us a random sort. Um, so if you guys like the default sort in JavaScript is like a quick sort or maybe a shell sort. Um, but if we randomize the compare and make, the compares, positive or negative, um, then this sort is going to, randomly, um, leave things equal or before or after. And what this does is it effectively randomizes our data, right? Now if we start out with person number 5, and as soon as I hit next, now we get 17. Um, person 17 doesn't exist. Interesting. So person 6, right, is the next one, and then 31, and then 30. Wicket, really? Um, and so you can see that by applying that randomization, we can, you know, we can get kind of we can make it appear like there people are showing up in a different order. Um, oh yeah, two sorted. Um, yeah, I didn't invoke the signal. Yes, yes, you caught me. Um, and two sorted is a good one. Um, but and we could do two sorted here, right? Um, ooh, oh, it doesn't pick it up. So my target library is wrong. So let's go take a look at my target libraries. Um, so my tsconfig.json, I'm targeting ES 2022. Let's try ES 2023. And lib is ES 2023. Uh, and let's see if that solves it. Yeah. So for those of you guys, and Michael makes a good, yeah, ES 2023 or newer. So the two sorted is really cool. Um, so Michael made a really good point. Um, there's a reason that actually winds up being a good choice. Um, and the reason for that is two sorted behaves differently than sort. And for those of you who don't know, we can let's go to do I have I don't. So let's go to TypeScript. Dang, that's not what I wanted. TypeScript Playground. That's the one I want. So let's see why this matters, right? And so let's create two arrays, right? Const array one equals um, array dot from, and here we're gonna go length. We'll do a length 15. Right? And we'll do const array 2, and we'll do the same thing, right? Array dot from, and again length 15, right? And We're just going to fill this array with the numbers from 0 to 1. So I, and this is going to be I plus 1. And we're going to do the same here. And for those of you guys who don't know, what we're doing is we're using the array.from, which is really, really cool. And array.from, what you can do is you can provide it an object, and as long as that object has a length on it, array.from will create an array of that size. Then you can pass it a mapping object, right? The first item we're just ignoring, that's the current value. It's just going to be undefined, right? Because it's just an empty array. The second value is the index, and we're just adding I plus 1. And so now if we console.log array1, we can see that array1 has the values from 0 to 1, or from 1 to 15. And if we console.log array2, we'll see that array2 also has those same values, right? So we can see array1 and array2 have those values. Cool. So now let's just do, we'll say const sorted 1 equals array1 dot sort. And again, we want to pass in a sorting function, right? And the sorting function that the Copilot came up with is actually not bad. It's just math.random. And then we subtract 0.5. Not bad. It's good enough for our purposes, right? Like we could investigate deeper if we were too worried about it. But so we're just going to return math.random. And then we're going to subtract 0.5. And what we want is we want to get about half of our values to be less than 0 and half of them to be more than 0, right? Because that's the way the sort works, right? Is if you're greater than 0, then you're above the whatever, and if you're less than 0, then you're sorted before it, right? It's a before and after. And if you're both 0, then it's you're sorted at the same area. I think JavaScript now has a stable sort, so things stay the same way. I don't remember, but let's just console log this now, right? Console.log array1, and we're going to do array1, right? And we're also going to console.log sorted 1 and sorted 1, right? And this is why what Michael suggested is important, because notice here, array1 starts out as 1 through 15. We then sort it and randomize it. Notice that sorting has side effects. It mutates the array. Yeah, Ole. Um, so, and we're gonna get to that, right? So, and you're kind of jumping the gun here, Ole, right? But we have a problem where we wanted to get a new sort, but we didn't want to mess with the original, right? And this is where sorted 2 comes in, right? Equals array 2.to sorted. And I think I'm going to have to go into my TS config. We're going to target ES next, and that should do it. So now my 2 sorted, and here we can do the same thing, right? We're just going to return math.random, and we're going to subtract 0.5 from it. And now we're going to console log array 2, and we're going to console log sorted 2, right? And so if we run this, notice that when we use 2 sorted is not mutating array 2. So array 2 keeps the structure that it had before, but we're able to provide a new sorting, right? And it's completely randomized, right? We can see it's completely different from what it was here. Um, like this is an interesting way of shuffling numbers, but you're like 15 is very unlikely to show up at the beginning, right? If we clear this and we run it, so we got 10 at the beginning here, 13. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess the way quicksort works, it must be doing quicksort, or I guess quicksort or shell sort would work. Um, I was thinking bubble sort, right? Which would be a very slow sort, but it would also make it very difficult for numbers at the beginning to wind up at the end and numbers at the end to wind up at the beginning. It would require a lot of comparisons to happen um, a certain way. With quicksort and shell sorting, and I don't know which one JavaScript does by default, but it is possible for very small things to wind up at the end. So 4 is at the end here, whereas 13 is at the beginning, right? This is a good shuffle, um, um, and as we run this, we can see that our shuffles are. So this one's gonna prove me wrong, right? Like 15's almost at the end, and but it's just the way random numbers work, right? It's uh, it's hard to catch trends here, right? Because like here 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 are at the end, right? Um, but really it just came down to that's the way the random number seed wound up, right? So it's working its hardest to prove me um, to prove me wrong. Like we're getting some sorts that are very, very similar to the original sort order, and that's whatever. I don't care, right? Um, but really, we just want to make it so sorted to the long-awaited sequel exactly. But Michael is very right to call this out, and it was a good argument, right? Like in my case, it doesn't matter that this is an in-memory sort, right? That we mutate this array because we're not using this array anywhere else. Um, every time this mercenary service is instantiated, we're going to create 82 integers, and then we're just going to randomly sort them. And then we've got an iterator, right? A generator, not an iterator, a generator that can generate these numbers in order. Which is really, really cool. Generators are amazing. You just need to use the asterisk and then yield something in there, and then they're just going to stop, right? And the next time they're called, they're going to run through. Um, and we could even make this loop around to the beginning so that it was just an infinite number of our random integers in order, and when it hits the end, it could loop to the beginning and just keep going in circles. Um, so you know, really, really cool. But if people go through 82 and don't pick one, I don't want to go back to the beginning. Um, anyway, um, this was a this was a good snipe, right? Talking about why this kind of stuff is important. Um, and so, when we start, hey, we start at person 6, Owen Lars, then we jump to Luke, um, and then so it is a bit randomized, but we're definitely sticking towards the beginning. And I think it has to do with the way our randomization is working, right? IG88, really. Um, so for whatever reason, person 17 was removed. I'm really curious who person 17 was. Oh, there was Wedge, right? Yoda is 20. I don't even know who Lobot is. Lando, Akbar, Admiral Akbar. There we go. It's a trap, right? Mon Mothma, the senator. Um, Wicket. Uh, yeah. If you pick Wicket on your Merc team, so Wicket comes from a television show that I watched and loved as a kid, where this family crash landed on the moon of Endor. They made friends with the Ewoks. That's highly unlikely to happen because if you watch what the Ewoks did when they captured C3PO and everybody, right, and Luke, they were going to eat them. Like, Ewoks are truly terrifying creatures, right? So, uh, but yeah, Qui-Gon. There we go. Shmi. Um, have Shmi go hunt Anakin. Finis. Rats. Um, so, right, we've got. That means that we need to have 83. Um, so max people is actually 83, and we figured that out. Um, but um, we want to filter out 17, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to do that. Um, we're 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 not going to be super we're we're not going to be super crazy about it. And it looks like my prettier is not working. Yeah, I don't know why prettier is not working. Let's figure that out. Why isn't my prettier working? Um, so prettier actions on save, run code, run prettier. Okay. Uh, and let's go ahead and there we go. We've got it. We fixed it. So we filtered out 17. It's horrible because this is really bad. Before we were running through this array twice. Now we're running through it 3 times, right? So first off, we create an array, fill it with the numbers from 1 to 83. Then we go through the entire array and we filter out number 17, and then we sort it. And this is where the pipe operator would be amazing, because with the pipe operator, we could say, hey, do this, and then do this. And so the pipe would actually run through each item, filter it, and then sort it. Um, but we can't do that yet, right? We do know that the pipe operator is in TC39, I believe. Um, it's on its way, but for right now, I mean, what's 83? That's 249. We go through 249 operations, probably a little bit more, to build this up. Um, you know, in like a system that does mega flops, that's still less than a second to do all of that. So I'm not too concerned, and if we're getting into gigaflops or teraflops worth of processing power, um, hardly matters at all, right? Um, so I'm not going to be too concerned, even though I just spent a whole bunch of time talking about it. Um, but this fixes our problem that we were having. So we did start at number one, then three, then four, then two, then five, six, eight. See, it our sorting algorithm tends to bias positionally. Um, so I it's not a good algorithm. Yeah, it's really biased positionally, um, but it's good enough, um, right? We're not going to see the same people every time, even though people might appear in similar orders. Who Jar Jar Binks? There we go, Darth Jar Jar. Um, so we've built the pieces that we need for our application to work. Um, so let's go ahead. Well, we're missing some pieces, right? Let's copy this and let's add a new, not file, let's add a new folder. This will be our models folder. And inside of our models folder, we're going to add a new person. Um, so we're going to call this person model.ts, right? Don't ask again. I'll take care of this later. And let's see. Can I paste this? Paste as. Because what I would like to do is JSON to JSON to TypeScript. Well, let's paste it again. And let's see if I can convert. I've got that one turned off. Um, I was hoping that there was a way to convert this to JSON, and maybe the way to do it is um, and let's see, let's go with Copilot. chat. Um, the code displayed on your device. Okay, there we go. Convert this to a JSON object or JSON schema. Ooh, do we like that? No. No, we don't. Ooh, Copilot. That was horrible. Um, we're just gonna do we don't want an interface. We're gonna do type person equals and name is going to be a string, height, make this a number. Well, these are all strings. And I don't want to spend too much time doing this, so we're just going to skin is white and blue and eyes are red. Are we talking about Admiral Thrawn? Birth year is also a string. And things are going slow right now. Hopefully my frame rate is okay. Yeah. Dota 2. You use TanStack libraries with Alt J. Oh, that's an interesting way of doing it. I haven't used the TanStack libraries too much. Um, yeah, I'm using Windows. That's actually not a bad piece of advice. Um, um, Unfortunately, this is where that one would fall apart a little bit. Um, but we can do it here, right? Ah, that's annoying. But we can do this. And then we can do that, and we can do string. There we go. And then Prettier takes care of removing all the quotes for us and making everything look nice. Um, and the only other thing we need to do is export this type. And there we go. So now we can go to our Merc service and actually we can just go to our Swappy service here. And our loader returns here. We can just say, hey, this returns a person array. And we can import person from our models. And we'll see that this updates everything. So now we get a person array. Um, Actually, this is a person array or a person. Um, and you know what? We're going to I will leave it for now. But now we can see that, hey, our people resource returns a person array, or undefined. Um, so our mercenary service, well, it just returns numbers. We're going to be moving a lot of our code into our mercenary service. But this allowed us to clean some stuff up, and we'll be able to do some nicer stuff with that. Even in Angular, but haven't felt compelled to. That said, the GUI for debugging looks incredible. Yeah, TanStack is something that I really need to look into. And it's Dooku is number 67. Cool. Um, do they have? They don't have an image of them. Um, that's too bad. I was hoping to add an image. Bail Organa. Um, yeah, TanStack is one of the things that I need to look into quite a bit, because it has such good. Um, there's so many amazing things, and I think it would work really, really well with resource. Um, that being said, we've now built our application to the point where we can start working on the UI again. Um, so I think that's what we'll do next time. Um, it last week was it's been a bit crazy, and this is definitely on me. But lately, just with like job interviews and stuff, my day can rapidly change from how I think it was the day before. Um, I need to get all of this done this week so that I'm ready for next week. So we'll be building this out. We'll be creating the different steps and things like that. Um, so um, we'll probably not um, we'll probably I don't know what we'll do, but um, we'll figure it out. The next thing to do is to create a nice looking interface like we've drawn up. Um, where's my Excalidraw? Where did I put that? That's Django. We don't need this anymore. There it is right here. So this is the interface that we're going to create. We're going to need some stuff to make this work, right? So an accept or decline, right? Swipe left, swipe right. Um, I thought about adding the swipe stuff to it. Maybe we'll get to that if we have time. Um, but in the beginning, we'll just um, we'll see how we want to make this work, right? Um, so we'll build the application and then we'll take it back on the different steps, and then people can check out those steps from um, as we're going through the workshop if they want to follow along. Um, handles caching, etc. on your queries. Basically, a heavier version of Fetch or Axios. TanStack has like that's TanStack data, right? There's also like TanStack UI. Like TanStack is huge. Um, way more practical. Yeah. Um, so I really need to look at TanStack because TanStack has some amazing stuff in it. And it would be fun to do with Angular. Got to finish up my X state stuff, and I really want to get into the new card game that I've been thinking about building. Um, that would allow users to potentially create their own cards or things like that. I think it would be a lot of fun to do that. Um, I don't know. There's so many things I want to do, um, but um, we're at a good place to end actually for the day. Um, I think we're gonna call it here. Um, this is what we'll be building next. We're at a place where our services and our resources actually wound up being pretty easy. I may want to add in one more resource, and that would be like a planet resource or something like that. But I don't know if we want to go that in depth. I think we may just want to start really simple. One thing we could do also is well, let's do that. Let's add in one other thing, right? Let's add in the RX people resource, and it's going to take that also, but it's going to return an RX resource, right? Um, and we can do this. Um, but we don't want to promise here. Um, and things have gotten really slow. So get person, we're going to change this and we're going to take this first value from out of get person. Um, and this is dangerous. Did you guys know that? That because of the way JavaScript works, if you work in a no semicolon environment, this is dangerous. I mean, it's actually warning us about it, right? That the return is just going to return nothing, and this is unreachable code. Um, you can't do that in a. So here we just want our first value from, boom. And it feels like it's not formatting again. Uh, I guess it is. It must be out past 80. Oh no, it's this stuff. It's all of this stuff. This line isn't actually 80 characters long. We're actually only at 60 characters, but it looks so much longer because of the way, um, and I know you can turn this off. Um, but now we've got an RX resource that we can use also, and we'll work the RX resource in to it too. But I do want to show like RX resource versus resource. So we'll add that to the application too. Um, and you know, even the HTTP resource is another good one that we could add as a bonus, but we'll worry about that one later. Um, no CQS. Um, interesting. Um, that's a That's a very interesting question. So CQS is a subset of CQRS, right, Michael? Get person is more controversial. Yes, it is. It is way more controversial um, than most people realize. Um, and um, I, I said Michael, but it's Dota 2 that's bringing this up, and you're bringing up a much deeper. Yeah, CQS is a right. It's just removing the read, right? The command query, and then I always forget. Like it's command query request, and then S is I always forget S. Um, so yeah, CQS and CQRS, very powerful pattern. And the importance of that pattern is to segregate commands from queries, from updates, and from, well, command query. Man, I'm gonna have to look this up. I'm gonna be bugged if I don't. CQRS definition, right? Command query responsibility segregate. Never mind. So you CQS is command query segregation. CQRS is responsibility segregation. Um, you're separating commands from queries, right? Is the whole point of it. And this winds up being a query, which should probably exist in its own query place, right? And my service is definitely violating CQS and CQRS. Um, yeah. Yep. Yep. Um, and yeah, CQS and CQRS are definitely architectural considerations. And the whole point is, um, well, they allow message queuing to happen, and there's a lot of power in like the CQRS versus CQS versus, right. Segregating your commands from your queries is very powerful, and you even see that in like your APIs, like your puts and um, your posts um, are segregated commands from your gets, right? um, in the HTTP. And if you design your API to follow that also, then you start getting into like the CQS and the CQRS type design. Um, but there are other important pieces to it, like CQRS. Does CQRS mandate idempotency? Um, yeah, yeah. Well, and the point of doing it this way is definitely for volume, right? In a high volume system, say say 90% of your application is reads, and your reads are incredibly fast, but that last 10% of your um, of your application is updates and commands, right? Queries versus commands. You're 90% query, 10% command. The problem is that your commands are very, very heavy, right? And they slow down the reads, which ruins the entire experience for everybody on the system. Well, how do you do it? Well, with the CQRS design, what you can do is you can segregate your commands from your queries, right? And your queries can be on microservices. And you could spin up those microservices, right? So as your queries begin to slow down, you can start giving more resources to your queries, right? Um, so your queries can grow, and that that heavy command subset, right? Your updates, your deletes, whatever. That heavy subset can live in its own microservice, that's unaffected by the queries. So if queries start taking up a ton of processing time, your updates don't get slower. But if your updates are super slow, they aren't slowing down your commands, right? And then with your deployment strategies and stuff, you can scale up, horizontally or vertically, however you need um, to get more power to the parts of your application that are important. And that's the importance of like CQS and CQRS, is that it allows you to take those pieces and segregate them. The other thing that it allows you to do with like a CQS, and especially in code bases, right, is if I give you a query object, right, like a query, a service or a query object, if we're following strict CQRS or CQS, that object cannot update anything, right? Which means that it's safe to give to people who don't have update permissions on your application, right? Well, it's safer, right? You still need to lock down like admin type queries and things like that. Um, but it's another layer of safety. And if you're dealing with a command type object, that object has to be making changes to data somewhere. You need to be more careful with that, right? And so it's another layer of abstraction to your application, but in the long run, it allows you to be faster because, oh, I've got a query object. It's, I'm just querying. I'm not going to be making updates. It's, I'm okay. Oh, I've got a command object. I need to be more careful. I need to make sure that whatever, right? That I'm getting proper data, that I'm handling data properly, things like that. Um, and permissions and things like that. Do they have update permissions? Whereas with a command object or with a query object, I don't care if they've got update permissions. I do care if they've got query permissions for the resource, right? Um, but um, I can segregate that, and then I can even give teams, right? Like, you know, as you're rapidly prototyping, you can build out your queries, and then your command teams can come along and build slower. So yeah, queries are supposed to be immutable, and commands are supposed to be idempotent, right? Um, so um, yeah, um, read only actually immutable is something else. Um, yeah, queries are always read only. They should also, well, that's a good point. They may not be immutable, right? Because you might change the ID. Who knows? It really depends on what you need, and like it gets deeper into architectural questions. This is a fun one to talk about. Um, yeah, return the queries in Java streams. And lots of different ways to do it, right? Um, but by segregating responsibilities like that, and what you're really getting into, and this is where things get interesting, right? Is your commands and your queries kind of become state machines, right? Um, so your commands and your queries could have the same interface, um, but the concrete implementation of a command versus a query, um, you know, you could interact with them the same way, but they do different things. Um, and that's where like CQS and CQRS lead to interesting interactions with things like XState, right? That's built entirely around state machines, because now you can specify, how do I transition from a query state to a command state, and what does that mean, right? And then what's the transition like from a command state back to a query state, and things like that. And your application becomes easier to reason about, but it takes more engineering to get to that state. Um, very, very. Thank you for bringing that one up, Dota 2 Attitude. Really appreciate it. I'm really happy with where we made it to today. Like I kind of plowed through it. I got less distracted than I really wanted to today. We did have a few distractions, right? We went in and we discussed like sorting. And one of the things that I think I need to get better at is like that whole sorting discussion could become a YouTube short. Um, and so I may go in and look at turning that whole sorting discussion into like a short on YouTube or something like that, so that people can share it. But yeah, um, thank you guys for being here. We'll be back next time. It'll probably be sometime. Tomorrow's a busy day, but I want to make sure that we're getting into this and giving it proper attention. I'm hoping tomorrow, um, but I've got quite a bit scheduled tomorrow, so we'll see how tomorrow goes. But definitely next time we'll start taking what we've done today and turning it into UI, so that we can start to see the application. Oh, what's the holiday tomorrow in Canada? I'm very, very, very US centric, so I don't know what the holiday is. Are you encouraging me to take time off? Islander Day. Islander Day. I've never heard of Islander Day. I'm gonna have to go look that up. Thanks for sharing. General Family Day. I like that idea. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. So if I don't, if I'm not back tomorrow, I'm celebrating Islander Day. Thank you for the excuse, Dota 2. Love it. Um, but I'm hoping to be here. I'm also going to get all of this stuff pushed up right away to the repo so that you guys can go take a look at what we did today. Um, but thank you everybody for being